Hi, this is Adam Eliel Berkowitz coming at you live from the Golan for Israel 365 News. I have a big scoop, the big merit. I'm here with Robert Gasner. Robert is an American living in Ashkelon. And if it's a little blurry, the reason why is Robert is speaking to us from his bomb shelter, since, as we all know, Ashkelon is being targeted by the Arabs. For some reason, there must be especially holy people in Ashkelon, and that's why they're angry at you guys, because they know that you're very holy. So Ashkelon has been hit by a lot of rockets. I lost track at 1500. Last night, there was, if I'm not mistaken, a rocket landed very close to you, and you came out and you helped some people out. So we'll start with that. First of all, tell me a little bit about who you are.
Actually, let me start a little bit before that, because I think you insulted everybody by calling me an American. I'm actually Canadian.
Oh, gosh.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I love America.
Americans assume everyone in the world is American.
God bless America. Love it. Love it. Anyhow, originally we're from Toronto. My wife Julia and I spent 50 years there in an amazing community. Family was entrenched, school, involved in everything from being involved in Congress, etc., student activism. And our dream was to come to Israel. We came to Israel. We moved to Karnei Shomron, mostly to help our daughter, who was 14 years old. We knew the transition would be difficult. And she did amazingly well, smashingly well. And we decided to then move to Jerusalem for a decade. And we spent a decade in Jerusalem. And we decided now it's time to move a little closer to our kids. And we moved to Ashkelon 2 months ago, and it is excellent. I've enjoyed it. And listen, even given the circumstances of the last couple of days and the bombings, this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is where we are. So it works out well.
Yeah, and just if you'll give me 1 minute, I want to put on the map that Ashkelon. A lot of people misunderstand. They think Gaza is a separate country from Israel. It's bordering Israel, or I don't know what they think. But just to give people an idea, if you look at this map, this whole section is Gaza, and
correct.
And if you look, this is entirely the size of Israel. There's the Dead Sea, and so Israel's not so big. But if you look from Gaza to Ashkelon, you're practically neighbors. Which
no, we are neighbors. I think it's about, from my house, it's about 17 kilometers. I pinpointed something in Gaza, and we're very close. And
which means that if there's a launch in Gaza, you have how long to get to the shelter?
It's very interesting, because you said there's been 1,500 launches.
Yeah.
I felt bad telling people, my family, I try and say we had 300, 400, 500. I think you're closer to the number, but anyhow, you get very used to it. And usually what you hear, because we are close, you hear the terrorists launch their missiles.
You hear it?
Yeah, you hear it, because they launch a bunch at a time. And then not everybody, my windows are right open to Gaza, to that direction. And then about 2 seconds later, or a second later, you hear the siren. Sometimes you hear the siren before. And then a couple of seconds later, you hear the iron domes going off. And then you've got about 5 seconds left after that to really be somewhere, or else you're out in the open. So I'd say maybe 10, 11, 12 seconds from where we are. Obviously, if you move further north to Rehovot, it's longer.
So you're not talking about getting your shoes on, grabbing your keys. You're talking about as soon as that goes, you jump and run.
Well, it's actually a little bit deeper than that, my friend. I used to work in property management in Toronto in very large office buildings. Maybe some of your listeners are familiar with the Olympia New York buildings and with the Reichmans. And so I worked in there and I learned property management. And the first rule was be prepared before. So not only do I have my shoes on, I wear them to sleep, because if chas v'shalom something happens, you got to be ready to go. And yesterday I had my shoes on when something happened. You asked about it. And I was ready to go because I was sitting exactly where I am right now, which is between solid walls, 2 floors above, and behind me solid. And a rocket came through, hit my neighbor's house next door. I shook. I was sitting on this wall, and I wound up like this. So you can imagine how it was. Thank God there wasn't as much damage as there could have been. But anyhow, I got up. I ran outside, and I looked around. The street was empty. There was nothing. But I turned and looked, and there was smoke, a huge smoke, and a huge fireball from my neighbor's house.
When you say neighbor, you mean like right next door?
I'm in a joined house. So the one right next to our joined house. So it is the next door neighbor. I ran out there. I saw the fireball, and I said to myself, you gotta do something. And so I looked around, and they have the gates. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but we have large gates in front of driveways in Ashkelon. Many places where they have single houses in Israel, but we have a lot of them here. And it looked like it was broken a little bit, so I went and pulled it to go in, and it wasn't opening. I was pulling. And I stuck my leg up and leveraged it and yanked it open. It came open, and I saw the place was like on fire. But there was an opening of about, I guess, 2 feet or so, where I saw I could get in and get right to the front door, and I did. And I entered, and the door was, I think it was open. They said I opened it, and I came in, and they were paralyzed. They were in like the kitchen and the front hall. And I said, in Hebrew, of course, I said, okay, let's go. And they didn't move. And there was a kid sitting on the floor like comatose. And I thought maybe he'd been hit by a piece of shrapnel. So I took a look, nobody's bleeding, thank God, let's go. The mother started, I picked up the kid, put him on my shoulder, grabbed another kid's hand and said, let's go. The mother went, the kids went, and we went out through the front door. Thank God the fire was on half the house. And we went out and took them down the hall. And I went to go see if there was anybody else. They said no. And running, I tripped, and it was all full of glass. So I cut up my hand, and I had a few minor injuries that are nothing.
A big smack on your eye.
Well, the smack happened. I couldn't get the door open on the gate, and I'm a handicapped person, physically challenged in many different ways. And I knew I was not going over that brick.
You're handicapped. You are such a hero.
No. I didn't say it like that, because the other option was to go up the car and jump over based from the car to the. I said not today. So anyhow, I put my foot on the thing and I yanked it out. It opened. There's a ball of fire, because unfortunately, and this is a lesson for everybody, more from my property management, be prepared. They had their sukkah mats and their sukkah stuff in that garage area, which went up like kindling. So it was a huge ball of fire. Most of the fire was there, although the rocket came through the roof of the garage and things were burning in there. So I did manage to get out, and the smack came from the edge of the thing. When I yanked it, it hit me on the side of the face. It hit me over here. They say it's not broken. It doesn't hurt enough for me to complain. So I'll agree with them. It's very sore, but thank God everybody is out. The family came by this morning with the little boy, and I tell you, I'm a pretty emotional guy, and I held it together mostly. But when I came back in the house and sat down, I'm starting again. I can't talk about it. Anyhow,
I'm starting to, dude.
It was beautiful. And this is a 5-year-old boy named Raphael David, and he's the same age as one of my grandsons. And I looked at this boy, and some people have been calling and saying, "Oh, you're a hero. You're a hero." It's not a hero. If my grandson was in there, I would expect somebody else would go through what I went through, because it wasn't that much of a. Whatever it was, but go through and do it. Because you know what? We're all in this together. They're not shooting a rocket at me or you. They're shooting it at all of us. They don't care. They kill a baby. They kill somebody. They don't care. They're happy. They got $200 million, $290 million from Joe Biden last month. And I don't think they put it into education or food. I think they put it into something that landed next door to me. And you know what? It's a disgusting thing. And the American people should rise up and say, hey, we stand with our ally. We don't stand with supporting the terrorist murderers, not with an Iran deal. And we certainly don't stand with John Kerry turning over our plans to our enemies. That's what this came from. So we're here trying to help out where we can. And thank God I had the honor to help some people. And that's all it is. And we've all got to do it.
First of all, if I can add, I merited doing the army in Israel. And a lot of time you read in the news that someone was suffering from shell shock, and you think that's or they have different names for it, and people think it's like, oh, I'm scared. No, it's actually a physical reaction. The bomb goes off. It's shock waves that go through your body. And when you say the young boy was paralyzed on the floor, he could not have moved. It's not like he was scared on a normal level. So in situations like that, just having someone come in and get you up off the floor by telling you to do it, by helping you, by guiding you, that's enormous, because you're after a shock like that, after a literal physical shock wave that goes through your body, and through your brain, it's very difficult to collect your thought. It's in some cases impossible. I've seen trained soldiers just unable to move. And what you did was may have seemed simple, but I can almost guarantee that those people, if they had not had someone to say to them, okay, this is what you're going to do, start walking this direction, there's the door, here, I'll carry the boy, they would not have moved. That's
I have to tell you, thank you for saying that. I look at it the other way. And I know who some of our audiences and people that are deep believers in the spirit, the nefesh and everything. And we just lost Rabbi Sachs, who was one of my teachers. And he said what it is really is when the thing that has to be done matches what you can do and want to do, that's the perfect match. And what had to be done was somebody had to go in there. And as you said, somebody had to pick up that kid. It could have been you. It could have been me. That's what we have to do for everybody here. Pick up the kid. I took him. I felt really bad. He was holding me really tight. And I said, I have to put you down because I want to go back. And he was holding me. He squeezed me. And I had to like a little bit of pry him off and put him on the floor. He wasn't crying, but he was very attached. And the kids were all attached. And running down, he was the only one at the end. And I went back and I checked and everyone was out. 2 neighbors came by with garden hoses. I was screaming them, get away, get away, get away. I thought the propane tank was going to go up. So then the real responders came and I just moved away. I went to look for the boy, for Raphael. I could not find him. But like I said, when he came over this morning, it was like my grandson. And it was quite a great thing. And it's not a hero thing. It's something you do.
It sounds like politics, what you were saying before, but it's really I've been reporting the news, and I try to report the news from a biblical perspective. And what I'm seeing these days is really the whole world is in a condition of Mila Hashem Elai. Whoever is for Hashem, come over here. It's really, and it's shocking that even while Hamas is shooting rockets into cities, shooting rockets at Raphael, at you, I don't think they can reach me. I'm in the Golan, but even while they're doing that, and just they're not even shooting them randomly. They're targeting the cities, and they're shooting from right next to apartment buildings. They're using their own people as human shields. A third of the rockets land inside of Gaza. Last week, they accused Israel of shooting rockets and killing small children, when actually in that explosion, it was caused by Hamas rockets that fell short and landed inside Gaza. And even that, when it's clear what is evil and what is good, it could not possibly be more clear.
Well, here's the problem.
I'm sorry?
I said, here's the problem. What you're saying is absolutely correct. We have learned, most of us, to write off evil, good evil, when we see it. It's taken a long time. Evil that's not good but is intense, like Nazism, we all recognize. In fact, we use it to this day to hurt everybody. Everybody uses it to hurt everybody. evil like communism. We saw what happened in Russia. People see it, they don't quite accept it. But then again, people's ideas of the collective versus the individual, it's always been a fight, and we know that it's a fight. The problem is, we recognize it in Russia, we recognize it in a lot of countries, and everybody's fighting for freedom. That ideology came to the United States in the 40s, during the war, by the Frankfurt School. And they somehow managed to get this ideology seeped into academia, seeped into politics, seeped into everything. They're now trying to put it into the curriculum.
And they make it seem like the ideal good. That's the scary.
But they're the ideal good, and they're putting it into the curriculum of K to 12 on a school board by school board level. It's ridiculous. It's insane. They're brainwashing the people who have to make decisions 30 years from now. It's terrible, and they don't understand. They've seen what individual rights and rights given by God, our Creator. We believe these rights, to be for all men. It's unbelievable. They just don't understand it. They don't even understand what we the people is, and that's individuals. Every individual is sacred, is important. It's not a group of people working to give everything to a group of people. It's you, it's me, it's basic human rights. And as a result, there's a breakdown in society. God is dead in the United States now. He used to be at least have some fans, but he's got very few. He's got us. He has the wonderful evangelical Christian community, and he's got a lot of smart people, I can say it, who call themselves atheists. They're not really atheists, but they support Israel because they support what's right and true. So we've got a lot going for us, even though it looks like some of the chips are down. And coming from a guy sitting with a wounded face and a few broken bones and that, smiling in Ashkelon, we've got some hope.
So I got a question for you. I got into
Okay, no alarms, just a bomb.
Okay. I should say, folks, we might have to cut this short, even without an apology, because this isn't make-believe. Robert is really in Ashkelon, and there are really rockets still being fired at Ashkelon, and he might have to shut it down and go to the shelter.
Right now, believe it or not, it would be nice to be with you in the Golan, but I'm more than happy and satisfied, and I'm talking to God every second. So
this is what I wanted to ask. Yesterday, I got on and I got into a discussion with someone online, and it actually started out with, "Oh, look at the condition in Israel right now." And I was saying, if I lived in Michigan in America, or if I lived, there are places in America that are not much better right now, and for longer periods of time. And then he went into this, but you can't make a living in Israel. And I'm like, what do you mean by can't? He said, it's impossible. And I said, what have I been eating for the last 28 years? And so you lived in Canada, which is I imagine it's very nice. And I imagine you had some family there. How long have you been in Israel now?
I've been in Israel. We've been here since 2009, I think. So basically 12 years.
12 years.
We spent a couple of years in the 90s here testing it out, where I learned I needed a lot more money to live here forever. So we went back and then came back again.
Was it worth it?
Oh my God. Well, we can say that. Let me give you one word on that, and then we're going to go to the issue of economic opportunity. Okay. Was it worth it? For me, it was very difficult. I had a great real estate practice in Toronto with Remax. I was selling houses left, right, and center. I loved the people I worked with. They loved us. It was I lost you. I can't see. There you go. And it was great. But I looked around, and I had decided in the early 80s that I was going to be here. And in the 90s, we came to look, and it was getting late in the, or as they say, long in the tooth. We were approaching our 50th year or 40 when we decided this is it. And we decided to come. Our daughter said to us about 3 years after we had come, she says, Abba, Ima, that was the best decision you could have made. We were worried about her. So the other two daughters, no problem. One's in Weitzman doing her PhD. One is a successful Beit Shemesh. Her husband's working in the finance field, doing amazing. Our third daughter is a head nurse at her Klalit branch in Romema. So it was good. But on the economic that you asked, I came here expecting not to work. And the truth of the matter is, the country made it very easy to follow that type of plan. It is very difficult. You have to know the language. You have to learn the customs. You have to learn the words. You have to understand what goes on. There's so many things. And my wife and I are well educated. I have 2 business degrees from York University in Toronto. And I've done many, many courses throughout the various things in drafting and property management, strategic coaching, and all sorts of stuff. So we were what we thought was well prepared to move to Israel. I can't say nothing could be further than the truth, but it was like a shock. Business shock, relation shock, money shock, they're all shocks. The truth of the matter is, if you really need help, there's help from organizations like Nefesh, and you can go into good communities where there's a lot of great people. We just moved here 2 months ago. We're building a great community. The people I see around me, and I had a community in Toronto like you could only pray for. Here, they're just as good. They're wonderful, 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 and we're already planning all sorts of things. But in terms of economic possibilities, the first time I came to Ashkelon was about a year ago. And I drove in, and I had to stop and get out and look, and I was far away still. I was 5 kilometers. And I looked and I saw all these cranes. And that was enough, because in Toronto, I had learned at the feet of one of the Remax masters who said, count the cranes. Look at how many buildings are going up. How many buildings have to be built to meet the demand? And the demand means real estate. It means food. It means clothes. It means, take it down to its basic level. It means toilet paper and sidurim. It means everything. Anybody who's willing to work hard, who moves to Ashkelon right now, is going to make a very decent living and a lot of money. Okay, so the other side is, they might do next year's interview with you in a bomb shelter like this, but you know what? That should be the worst thing. Economically, it's a shock. I'm not going to say what I'm doing right now. I've looked into a few businesses. I've actually made a couple of proposals. Difference between Canadian business, American business, and Israeli business is day and night. I'm learning. Different accounting, different way to look at numbers.
I remember when we've had to, as a family, go to the social services for counseling to help with the kids, and at one point, and it's a humbling experience. And at one point,
you're being very kind to your viewers, because it's not a humbling experience. It's impossible. You get lucky when it works.
Right. And the woman who was helping us, at one point, she just turned to me. She's like, "You're Olim. You moved to Israel. You're brand new here. Of course you need help." And I was speaking to her one time. We were sitting down with a financial counselor, and she said exactly the same thing to me. She said, "Look, the average person, if they don't move, if they don't change countries, there's this continuity." She said, "You move here, you pick up laundry baskets, sponges, clothes, everything. And you don't have the infrastructure of friends, of business connections. You don't know how things work." I was a chef in Manhattan. I come here, I was on the same level as my Mexican dishwashers in New York City. And people treated me like that. And it was very humbling. Yeah, I am being nice using that word.
I got to tell you, I came here, one little particular area. I told you I was in property management. We managed dozens of buildings in New York, Boston, Toronto, the major buildings, you name them, and they were owned and managed by O&Y. So I came here, and I had been involved in real estate, selling condominiums and commercial and a lot of residential. And when you sell a condominium in Toronto, you have to come with a package that's 100 pages. Everybody gets it. It costs $100. It could be more pages, less $100. It's law. It tells about the building, who's in there, how much has been paid into the funds, etc. And okay, I got to Israel. There was none of that. Okay, fine. I get to the building. There's no record of anything. The first knock on the door is, give me 450 shekel for Yavad Bait. So I was looking at this and I tried to figure out what's going on. I had no problem managing hundreds of tenants, dealing with them, solving all their problems in Class A buildings. First Canadian place, largest building in the British Commonwealth until, well, still there's no more Commonwealth, but it's the largest building, in that realm. We had 12 tenants. It was harder to manage 12.
Your daughter said something kind of, and it reminded me something of something I hear from a lot of Jews who move to Israel is moving to Israel it's way harder than I expected it to be, and it doesn't get much easier. And I'm so glad I didn't know that, because it's the best thing I ever did.
That's my daughter. Which one of my daughters? Don't tell me.
No, you said that. She said that. She said, "Thank you, Abba."
Oh yeah, my youngest daughter. Yeah. She didn't say it was that hard. She wouldn't be. Well, yeah. You totally got the flavor. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. And you know what? People are afraid, but I look at people in situations like in Manhattan or situations in Toronto, whatever, and they want to bring their kids up, and they have the values, similar values to us, Eretz Israel, Torah. And they're going to sit there and they're going to be away from Eretz Israel. They're going to pay tuition like crazy. Difficulties from their people around them, somewhat anti-Semitism, and they can pop in here. They can get help. They can do it, and they're landing their grandchildren. My grandchildren sometimes speak Hebrew to me. That was worth everything. It's unbelievable.
There you go. That is the big payback. That is the payback.
Yeah. And the other side of the coin is, I was trying to think, the only thing I can't get in North America that I can get here in terms of TV and food and this is my friends, and I've got them just like you and I here. So good. I'd love to give my mother a hug, but the COVID and this and that's been a long time.
It's Hashem is really putting us through the grinder. I remember when I first started becoming religious. When I first started becoming religious, a rabbi explained to me that being religious is kind of like those laboratories where you have these handles that you manipulate, and on the other side of the glass you see the claws moving things around and use the handles. So you're not. It's kind of like by doing things by remote control.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what being religious is, because we're saying, that there's a part of reality that we don't see, and that part of reality that we don't see is God. So it's like you throw a ball up in the air, and God is the one who takes it up, and God is the one who brings it down. And if you're doing a very simple cheshbon, a very simple calculation of benefits versus negative aspects, Israel is a hard sell, because you've got rockets falling on you. You've got, it's hard to make a living. Is so much. It's a small country. You're surrounded by enemies. So if you want to make the calculation balance out, you have to add in something that we can't see.
Right.
And we all know what that something is.
Right. It depends on your emunah, but I look at it a little bit differently. Excuse me. Everybody's faced with these similar challenges, right? Some less, some more. But I look at these challenges, and it's every time. Like I said, it's impossible to get stuff done. Eventually it gets done. If you make the same mistake many times over and over, you really figure it out. But I look at all these challenges as gifts. They're the raw material for being able to learn from it and to do better and to pass it on to your children and to other people. Right? People are coming here all the time. I got to give you an example of that. I have a really good friend here, Stephen Epstein. He was my only friend in here when I came here.
So tell me, Robert, this is people coming to see the house?
No, this is people actually from the checking to see what was damaged in terms of tax and property and stuff like that, because they know something happened. He asked me if anything happened in the house. I said, well, there was a bomb. He said, did it affect the house? I said, no, the house is fine. No, I actually
So this is also part of the aftermath of a terror attack. And if you think of all the hundreds, thousands of rockets that are being fired, the houses that got hit, the government comes in and there's a whole procedure of checking what was the damage. Does the government help out people whose houses got hit? Do you know?
No, I don't know. I mean, honestly, the damage to me, I've had like five things, small things like things falling off the chandeliers and smashing. I was sweeping up glass every night for 4 or 5 days. Little things, a cup fell over, a bottle of oil got shaken over the thing. Oh, that was terrible. Cleaning up an oil spill, even in your kitchen, is not fun. Little stuff, but yeah, people, the guys next door are going to lose their house, and it's going to have to be rebuilt. So the question is, who takes care of that? And the government here is exceptionally generous, because the government here is the people. The people are very generous because it's happening to everybody. It's not elites. It is people. Everyone helps out and does whatever they can. People are running around, at the hospital. It was a tragic scene last night when I went in, because somebody else came in and didn't fare as well as I did. And there were people, and they walked with sandwiches and coffee. And at the hospital, everyone was pitching in, and people were seriously in trauma.
That's another thing. Whenever you hear about an attack, you can say, oh, there was a person injured, and you think, oh,
Right.
they're injured. They'll, you put on a band-aid. They'll be good next week. Some of these injuries are for their whole lives,
Right.
and people, and some injuries.
Well, not only for their whole lives. I mean, listen, Iran is not stupid. Syria is not stupid. These people are smart. It's like in any war. If you don't want to kill somebody. Well, I mean, you do, but if you injure somebody, it takes 5 soldiers to take them away, another 5 soldiers to move them, a whole bunch of people support them the rest of their life, and it's part of what they do. I'm not saying they do that intentionally, but I'm saying that the minds that think about that don't care about us in one hoot would rather see somebody injured and
Not to mention the PTSD, which is a
Oh
very
my
real
God.
thing. There's this. There can be this attitude of, oh, get over it. I've know people who have been in terror attacks. You can't just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get over it. It's a very real thing.
Man, you're touching a very, very deep subject, because that ruins not only the person, but everybody involved and all the future generations and some people above, parents. Now imagine, we get PTSD from this that's going on now. You saw what happened with that terrible, terrible, terrible accident at Meron, and the families and the losses and the children and the Yisoimim and the country. The country. We've been going through this for 70 years. That's 70 years after we marched out of the gas chambers. So this PTSD is not a game.
5-year-old Raphael
Can you
from
imagine?
last night.
This is today. This is 2021. In 40 years, when he looks back, and maybe the same garbage is going on, and he remembers this has been his life. You're right. It's something that we should be spending our money on, this, not defending ourselves from rockets. And they should be spending their money on feeding themselves and educating themselves.
Also, there's a lot of PTSD, a lot of spiritual and psychological shock and leftovers that the Arabs are going to be dealing with.
Well, listen, it's floated right over into the Arabs in Israel now. Look what's going on here. They're all this pent up aggression and PTSD maybe, and this 70 years of teaching them that it's their land, and they're still telling them they're going to get it back. Like some guys thinking I'm going to be sitting there with the atomic bomb button in my finger in 4 weeks from now.
And I moved to Israel in '91, and a few years later we had Oslo. And the Oslo Accords were a big lie, because before that, I used to go into Arab villages for to fix my car, to have some coffee. They had kosher restaurants. It was actually, and I worked in a dairy farm. They used to sell them the extra dairy, the calves. Sell them the cows when they weren't giving milk anymore. So we had relations with them, and all of a sudden, this crazy government thing came in and said, no, 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 we're going to divide everyone. There's going to be borders, and it's this process, the Oslo peace. And now the Oslo process was, what, 20 years ago, I think maybe a little less. And we're seeing the young people who were raised on this Oslo process are it's just generated more hate among them.
Yeah, you've
It has not brought peace.
you've hit it right on the head. People don't understand Oslo. They hear Oslo, there was a peace deal, it was this, that, and the other. There was totally no relationship to reality of what it really was. You were in Israel then, I was in Israel. I remember that Friday night reading the Jerusalem Post, and the entire text was laid out, and we read the actual accord, and there was one line in there that stood out more than any for me, that they were going to give them 44,000 machine guns. They
Yep.
laid out what the package was going to be, and I said, they're going to give them 44,000 machine guns this way, and when they point them back at us, how are you going to take back 44,000 machine guns? And it's terrible. Oslo was a farce, and we paid the price.
What we're seeing today is a direct result. Of Oslo. We did not have this before Oslo. We certainly didn't have it before before dismantling Gush Katif.
Yeah,
because we had Gush Katif, we didn't have Gaza. Now we've got Gaza. Now we've got the Palestinian Authority. Now they have those 44,000 Kalashnikovs that we had lying around spare.
Well, Eliyahu, I have to tell you, the fact that we all knew it and it was plain as day doesn't make the pain, the suffering, or the hundreds or maybe even thousands of dead. I have people, my good friend of ours, Ari Fold, direct result.
We all knew it.
Hundreds, people, it's just, anyhow. We should hope it sort of gets better. There are blue skies, there really are. Like I said, the economic situation, if anybody wants to call me and talk about it, and if anybody's really good, they could be my partner down the road. So you never know.
Okay, Robert, I think we're gonna finish it here. I really can't thank you enough, and really, I hope Raphael grows up giving you hugs.
Listen, it should just be good for everybody. The Eibishter gave us the ability, and it should be great.
Amen. Bezrat Hashem. And like I always say at the end, we're open for your blessings. Send them our way. If you bless us, book says we have no choice. We got to bless you back, and we do that happily. It's our job.
We are all blessed. We are all blessed by God, and He gave it to us right at the beginning.
Amen. So thanks everyone for joining us. Have an amazing day. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.